from screen to shelf.
Welcome back, everybody, to a special From Screen to Shelf podcast episode. As always, I am joined by my partner in crime, Mr. Will. Welcome back, Will. I think it's
what's going on, everybody?
Been a few episodes since you've been back, but I am super excited to talk about this because last week, Gabe and I talked about something that was really popular in the community, and I was so over the moon that we got to make that episode, and that was addressing popular 4K Blu-ray collecting topics. And we had talked about collecting, like what to look for in a player and how to be reasonable with your budget and, you know, not always go OLED this, OLED that, and, you know, 820 supremacy for 4K players, sound bars versus AVRs, and FOMO and stuff like that. So you and I were talking before this, and we thought it'd be really good to address boutique collecting because that's a little bit of a realm of, I'd like to say, a lot of possibilities. You're definitely, once you start opening that curtain to boutique releases, you're damn near going to open up a massive floodgates because boutique releases outnumber, I'd say, 4 or 5 to 1 for every studio release. You probably got 4 or 5 boutique releases for each studio release you get.
Yeah, maybe more depending on the month because some months are definitely heavier than others in terms of output. So yeah, I'd say at least 4 or 5.
Yeah, exactly. So the way that we're going to talk about this, and of course, as we usually do, we'll probably talk about some other things or even giving you some tips or feedback or personal opinions on some other companies or other topics while we go through this. But we're just going to talk about how to approach boutique collecting, how to avoid FOMO, when pre-ordering is going to be necessary versus waiting for sales on some of these companies, because Gabe has been doing this a while, but definitely Will and I are more into boutique releases. Especially like Vinegar Syndrome, Terror Vision, Second Sight, 88 Films, stuff like that. That's something that Will and I have ordered quite a few from. So we've gotten pretty used to the status quo and the flow of how they go. So we're going to start with what we deem to be the most popular boutique labels, and then we'll definitely get into the more obscure. So Will, I was thinking probably the most popular, I would say, and we can tackle them all at once because I think all but one of them could be kind of said it doesn't matter or whatever the case may be. I think it'd be great to go ahead and start talking about Criterion, Scream Factory, Kino Lorber, and Arrow. I think those are the big four. When most people think boutique, until you start getting into like yours and mine's world, Will, like, because we're super into Z grade horror, B, you know what I mean? Everything in between for horror. So then you start getting into Vinegar Syndrome. That might be somebody else's favorites, but I would probably say those are the top 4 out of any boutique label out there. So how would you feel? How would you want to start that out? How would you, talking about those main 4, knowing they're the most popular, somebody that wants to get into boutique Blu-ray collecting or boutique 4K collecting specifically, since that tends to be what is the more niche part of it and the harder to obtain X, Y, and Z. How would you explain to them and how would you tell them to approach the situation?
Well, I think as far as which one to start with out of those 4, I would say that Criterion is definitely probably like the gateway label.
Yeah.
I think Criterion has a pretty well-rounded selection of movies from a lot of different genres. And I think Criterion, like if you're somebody who's, I guess we can say a mainstream, 4K or Blu-ray collector, meaning, you grab more of the studio titles, the studio discs, so to speak. I think Criterion, at least for me, Criterion was my first foray into, I guess we could say, boutique labels. It started with between Criterion and Scream Factory, really. Like that was my first kind of foray into boutique. And then from there, I kind of discovered some of the other labels, Kino I had heard of before.
Yeah.
But I think Kino is not, I don't think it's up there with, Criterion. And Scream Factory. But I think we start with Criterion. So
Yeah,
I
I think
would.
it'd be good. I think it's the easiest to address too.
I think it is, because I mean, dude, it's like by now everybody who's in the community knows, like, with Criterion, let's just put it this way: we never have to worry about them selling out. They
Yeah.
very rarely, it's unheard of, at least
Yep.
in my experience, that any of their releases sell out.
Yep.
They mass produce enough of them that they tend to be in stock for some time. And the
Yep.
best thing about that is really, it just that segues into the method of buying Criterion.
Yeah.
For me personally, I mean, and I think this is the case with a lot of people. I think unless you really want something day one, your best bet is to wait for the Barnes and Noble half off sale.
50% off. Yep,
Um,
always.
and,
Because they don't
and
go
that's
out of
kind
print
of been the
either.
thing.
Like
What's that?
to your point. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think any of the 4Ks from the time they started with around like Red Shoes and I think Raging Bull and For All Mankind was their first 3 that they did. None of
Yeah.
them are out of print. So 3 years later after their first 4K, you can still,
Yeah.
or no, Citizen Kane was their first one. I totally forgot about
Citizen
that.
Kane
You
was,
can
yeah.
still get Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's literally no FOMO.
Yeah, and that's why I think for someone that wants to dip their toe in the water, it's
Yeah.
an easy enough label to deal with. It's safe, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like you just said, you don't have to worry about FOMO or anything selling out.
Yeah.
You can pretty much find these titles. You can find them online. The best thing about that Barnes and Noble sale is if there's not a Barnes and Noble near you, close enough to you, or if you're just not willing to drive to one,
Yeah.
Amazon has been, as of late, at least within the last year and a half, they usually match those prices.
Yeah.
So Amazon usually matches the Barnes and Noble sales prices for the 4Ks. So yeah, I would say you want to get into boutiques. Criterion is probably the way to go to get your toe in the water because, as I said, they have enough of a library where there's a wide variety of movies there. There's a little bit of something for everybody there. And yeah, I've gotten most of my Criterion titles on the sale, usually in November. I think they run another one. I think they do it usually twice a year, if I'm not mistaken. But I usually tend to wait till around the holidays because I have a little more disposable income. And, Criterion, it used to be a label that I would look forward to the sales for. And not that I don't look forward to those sales, but there's so much else going on now in the world of boutiques that, and depending on where my tastes are, because of where my tastes are nowadays, personally, they're just not a label that I get super excited about but it's a good thing because I know no matter how
Exactly.
long I wait, those titles are going to be there. So I don't have to worry about, marking my calendar, like setting a reminder on my phone, like, hey, this sale goes live at whatever time, oh, hey, whatever title's being released on this day and date. So I don't have to worry about that with Criterion. So for that reason, as I said, I think they're the best label to get into to start one's journey into boutique collecting for that reason alone. Again, if we want to run through the bullet points here, titles are widely available. Frankly, impossible. That they sell out. They never have. The sales are twice a year. They're pretty consistent with that in terms of that time frame. So it's they usually run them around the same time each year. One in the late fall. I guess we could say holiday season between November and December. And then the other one, I think they do it around March or April, if I'm not mistaken, sometime early in the spring.
Because they do the Arrow sale as well. I think they're separate.
They do an Arrow sale too. Yeah.
Yeah, which we'll talk about in a bit because we're going to definitely
get into that too.
I think that wraps it up in a nice bow, especially around Criterion Collection. It's the most easily accessible. It's going to have probably, I wouldn't say the most mainstream because not all of their movies are mainstream, but you're definitely going to find some Scorsese flicks in there. You're going to find some David Lynch, which again isn't necessarily mainstream, but he's a well-known director in that realm. So if you're already kind of shopping around for outside of major studio releases, you probably already know about most of the people that are out there. Kurosawa, David Lynch, Scorsese, the main people that typically hit the Criterion Collection,
Yeah.
And then you'll get the occasional like uncut gems that came out. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, they'll even get some streaming only movies and put them out there. So I think that's a great way to open up that conversation because it definitely starts differing from here, I feel like. And I'll open up. I don't know if you disagree, but I would definitely have to say Scream / Shout Factory is the second biggest one. If not technically a sales volume, they'd probably be the biggest one because a lot of people don't realize their labels on a lot of things out there. Like they have their little watermark on a lot of spines out there, even in the $5 Blu-ray bin, the $5 DVD bin at Walmart and stuff like that. You'll find some Scream and Shout Factory releases. As of late, they did. You might have to jog my memory on some more mainstream ones. They did Magnificent Seven. They did Used Cars. They did Real Genius. They've been doing some absolute classics.
I mean, I can go back. I mean, Clue, they released Clue, and that was through the Shout line. That wasn't necessarily Scream Factory, but Clue was a big one for me. But even, Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Yes.
To talk about
Huge
Scream.
for people like us.
Huge release for them. One that's highly anticipated or was highly anticipated. They came out with a few different options for ordering. You get like the standard slipcover. They offered a steel book with that as well, which they don't normally do.
Yeah.
But for a release like that, they did the Scream Factory version of going all out. They had the whole collector set with the pins and stuff like that. And that's something maybe we can talk about too if you want to go off on that after we talk about the sales, or we could touch on that now because Scream Factory has been doing that lately with their releases. They do this thing where you can order the standard slipcover if you want, or steelbook if they give you that option. And then they have these packages, so to speak, which other labels are doing. There's other labels that are doing that now, and we'll get into that as we talk about them, one by one. But that's the thing nowadays. Like now you don't necessarily have to just buy, if you don't want to, the standard slip or the release with the standalone disc. They offer packages, sometimes with an alternate slipcover. Scream Factory does this thing where they give you a poster, although most of their releases, if you order directly from them, you get like an 18 by 24 rolled poster.
Yeah.
Either with the original artwork or the commissioned artwork. Do you happen to have one near you?
Oh, yeah, here right we go. He's gonna whip the one for here. Killer Clowns for our video people. It'll come in exactly every single one. I have all the Child's Play ones. Every single one comes like this.
So and those posters will, or sometimes they do sell out, depending, because they are limited quantity.
Yeah,
that is something that if you want the poster, folks, it's an 18 by 24 poster. Which again, like if you're not into collecting like traditional 27 by 40 or 27 by 41 one sheets of movie posters, if you want to save wall space.
Yeah.
A lot of people tend to go with either the 24 by 36 posters, but one step down would be an 18 by 24. Still looks good on your wall. I got a few of them in the room, not behind me, but on the other side of the room here. And like Slumber Party Massacre, for example, looks pretty good. So they do that with a lot of their releases. So if you're going to order directly from Scream Factory, expect that if you're early on ordering, you're going to get that poster unless it specifies that it's no longer available.
Yeah.
But, you can also find Scream titles, Shout titles on Amazon. You can find them at other, distributors like Diabolic DVD, Grindhouse Video. Or they carry all those as well. So.
Yeah, and you bringing up those people, man, it brings me up to really one of the only things about FOMO whenever it comes to, because fear of missing out is, I'd say, is one of the biggest contributing factors when it comes to boutique releases, especially as we go down this line. I feel like the fear of missing out, depending on the type of collector that you are, or the bargain hunter that you are, gets worse as you go down these lines. I would say Criterion 100% is the safest that we said. To your point, that's why I wanted to piggyback off what you were saying about them being their own distributor in that realm. Criterion, you can order from them themselves, but you're very rarely going to get those prices that we just mentioned. Scream Factory has a big advantage outside of the posters, the enamel pins, and the alternate slipcovers to paying full MSRP for their releases. Sometimes it will show up at your door 2 to 3 weeks early. I'm not exaggerating. You can genuinely get it that early. So, like, as an example, I could not wait for any of the Child's Play movies. I ordered all of those. I have all of the alternate slips. I have all of the posters for them because they just came because I pre-ordered them. And I think I got them roughly a week and a half to 2 weeks early each time I did those. Those are the only times I did it because I have seen so many people get it early, and I was no exception. So if they announce a release and that those additional goodies and stuff like that, and a nice slipcover, an alternate slipcover looks better for you, and you care about that artwork for what you're getting, for sure support them directly. But also at the same time, Shout/Scream Factory doesn't necessarily have the easiest barrier of entry when it comes to their price.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, and I feel like this is a very good thing for us to address as well. And this is by no means, I've been very vocal. I'm a big Scream Shout Factory fan, especially for my my individual reviews I've done lately for some of the Scream Shout relates, like UHF is an amazing transfer. RoboCop 2, RoboCop 2014 looks really solid as well. They have been killing it this year, and especially towards the tail end of last year with like Pumpkinhead and My Bloody Valentine. They do a lot of really good work. But
Pumpkinhead
now
was great.
it was really good, one of their best. Now, to address one of the elephants in the room, because this could be something, and I think Will and I, we may have even answered this or seen this dialogue in the server, is the Ultimate Collector's Edition or the Collector's Edition or whatever the case may be label that they have on there, right? And it can be a bare bones release. Most likely, it's not everything that you're going to want. They try their best. Scream Factory, for the most part, I will give them the tip of the hat for that. They do try their best to absolutely do everything that they can. Doesn't mean every single one's a home run. And I kind of want to address that elephant in the room. And again, that's me being a big fan of what they do. At one point, I had all of their 4Ks before I just got a little bit more picky and choosy. You're not guaranteed a slipcover. Generally, the only way I know if a movie's coming with a slipcover is they'll sometimes show it on their website. But even then, the standard Amaray pictures that they'll show online, sometimes I got a slipcover like with Child's Play on that one, you know?
Yeah.
So if you're a slip hunter, you care about that, you generally don't have to worry about the slipcovers going out of print. You can generally keep getting those. I can't personally think of a time where it's like only in the first 2 weeks you were able to get a slipcover for this movie. So FOMO isn't a really big thing when it comes to Scream Shout, because like even the Halloweens, you had a whole year after those came out before you stopped getting the full slip cardboard boxes. You had a whole year to get those, and that's plenty of sales. I'm pretty sure I got those on sale.
They were out for a while. Like, I will say, like, that's the thing. Like, I agree with that. I mean, after Criterion, I think Scream Factory is still a relatively safe bet if you're one of those people that want to get slips, but you don't want to order it right away, or you want to wait for a potential sale.
Yeah.
Again, not a guarantee like Criterion, though, because we're starting to get into territory where, you know, there's always the possibility that you're not going to get one. And that's the case with a lot of things. But at the same time, like, dude, for example, 2.5 months ago, Alligator 4K, that disc that I had was scratched. I reached out to Scream. I don't think we ever talked about this too.
I don't think so.
I don't remember talking to you about it. I thought I talked to somebody about it. I thought it was you, but I contacted them. They sent me a replacement disc and a case and slip. So,
you did tell me about that, and told you to keep the old one, right?
What's that?
And they told you to keep the old one. You didn't have to send the old one back, right?
Discard the old one because the disc didn't work anyway. So they told me just, you know, throw away the disc. Don't worry about the other case and stuff. But they do. They sent me a new disc, completely sealed, and the slip cover was still on it. So there's still versions of Alligator. Now, I don't remember when Alligator 4K was released.
I want to say it was about 2 years ago, early in the
year.
It's
been a while, dude.
One of their first.
Because
they released Alligator 2 as well. Yeah.
So this was 2 months ago. So this was May of this year, and they sent me a copy with a slip on it. So there's still versions of that release with slips in circulation 2 years later. Now, again, Alligator, I think it's a cool movie. You know, it's a cool flick. You know, I'm glad I got the 4K. Not everybody's going to want Alligator on 4K, right? Some titles are going to be more popular than others. But again, 2 years later, dude, like, to still have a slip on it, or to get one with a slip on it is pretty good, right?
Yeah.
So the chances are with Scream Factory, as opposed to the labels that we're going to talk about after this, they're your next safest bet in regards to that. Now,
I agree.
I think we should talk about sales, because here's the thing with Scream that they get a lot of criticism.
Never go on sale. Their sales are like $1 or $2 off, man.
Dude, even their sales are not necessarily sales. It's like
we gotta give you credit for that last one. I think you and I splurged on that one. That was a good one.
The last sale they had, what was that exactly? Do you remember what that was titled?
That was a Spring Fever sale or something like that.
It was like Spring Fever or something.
April or March. Yeah.
That sale was badass, dude. That was like the first sale in a long, and I remember people joking on like the Boutique Discord, like, wow, this is actually a sale.
Yeah.
Like, for the first time in such a long time, Scream Factory actually has a sale, and someone was like, damn, they must have really ran out of room in their warehouse because now they really need to get these things off the fucking floor. That's why they're actually on sale now. But for the longest time, that's been a lot of the gripe with Scream Factories, that their so-called sales are more like, like you said, it's like $1 or $2 off, $3 maybe on some titles. Not much. But again, maybe that'll change. If that last sale that they had a couple months back was any indication of
I hope it was
what
really
we're going to get moving forward, because that was good, man. That was worth
That's
it.
a good
That was like,
Blu-ray
okay,
deals.
damn.
Yeah.
They did. Yeah. So, hopefully, hopefully they sold a lot during that sale, and maybe that will send them the message that they could, do that more often for the sake of, collectors and people that are looking for some of those titles. And that's the thing, man. Like, some of those sales are worth it though, regardless of whether or not there's enough money off. I think, especially for some stuff going out of print, like a lot of their Blu-ray box sets are soon to be out of print.
Yeah. Big
Stuff
Trouble
like
in
The
Little China.
Fly. Yep. Yeah, Big Trouble in Little China, the Blu-ray almost out of print.
As of
That
this
4K
recording.
is something that's in limbo right now.
Yeah.
And that's been a discussion for a long time as to whether or not we're going to get a title like that on 4K, because it is a Fox title, and everyone knows the situation with Fox and Disney. But Scream Factory has a lot of those movies. Big Trouble in Little China, The Fly, the Omen collection. A lot of those collection, the Critters movies, Critters. The Critters Blu-ray collection set, which I have, awesome set. And that's the thing, man. Scream Factory, like, for all the crap that they get, and I'll be devil's advocate here. I'm the first person to call them out when I think they do something that I don't agree with. Like, that whole Carrie release, like being like $35, like for a movie that many consider to not be a premium release.
Yeah.
Their box sets, dude, their Blu-ray box sets were the shit, man.
Yeah, I have the Critters one and the Omen one. It's really well done.
The Omen one, the Critters one, I own the Fly one as well. And obviously a lot of people know about the Friday the 13th box set that they did, which is fantastic. And then the now out of print Halloween box set, which was phenomenal. Like the Halloween Blu-ray box set, dude, was one of the best things that Scream Factory ever did.
Because they did the producer's cut in that one, right?
I believe
was the first producer's cut.
Yeah, I have it right here, but yeah, dude, and that's the thing, and I'm pretty sure they still did some of this. They worked with Anchor Bay on that. That's how they were able to pull that together. So that was a fantastic release. So Scream Factory, they get a lot of crap from people in the community for their practices, as of late in the last couple years. And they've had their controversies with like the Grease Gate, with like the Chucky or the Child's Play 2 release, with like the the off gassing on the discs, and like grease being on the discs and whatnot, that whole thing,
the grease,
that whole debacle.
Yeah.
But other than that, dude, they're still up there, in I guess we could say as a label that I think still has something to offer.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as you were saying, as far as getting into boutique releases, that's probably the next label that I would recommend someone check out if they're not necessarily worried about having to buy releases day one.
Yeah, especially being sales centric. And I think it is, as you can tell, we're going to get into things that are a little bit harder and are going to take more time to explain. Scream is probably bigger than Criterion in a sheer volume level with what they put out. So there's a lot more that goes into it, but also at the same time, like we said, Criterion is the ease of access is unreal. As long as you have a Barnes and Noble. Now I do want to go ahead our next talk track, and I'm going to open up that one because I have some words about Kino Lorber, but I also kind of want to do a shameless plug here for a second, because on our last video that we did for the podcast, we had a lot of comments under the video asking about our Discord server. So I kind of wanted to break that down for what we do over there for some people really quick. So like we're talking a lot about sales, and we have a wonderful community. It'll be linked in the description over here. A lot of the people that listen to this are actually from that community, but we do sales alerts, pings, everything. So if you actually aren't from the server and you're over here supporting us and checking us out, and you want sales notifications and everything like that, it's literally the world's best community. Super wholesome, super awesome. We have people up at 3:00 in the morning posting sales the second they see them, whether it be on Amazon, eBay, third-party listing, whatever. So if that's something that you're into, go and check that out. I just kind of wanted to take that time while I was thinking of it and go ahead and talk about it. It'll be linked down below for a link that never expires. because people were asking about it last video. So to continue what we were saying, Kino Lorber. Now, this one is so freaking 50-50, man, when it comes to Kino Lorber. They're really hard to kind of gauge. You can get some damn good things on sale. And even then, like, that's kind of why I wanted to plug it and talk about the Discord before I talked about this, because I'll get pinged on a pre-order notification. Like, what's that last one, a Tarkovsky movie, Nostalgia, was like $12-$14, brand new on 4K on some like pre-order price. Pre-ordered it came in for $14. But then some of their releases will be $27-$30. Some of their releases will have a slip forever, like Silence of the Lambs are still showing up with slip covers. And then you have Kindergarten Cop, where it's already not showing up with a slip cover, or Spaceballs, where I pre-ordered it and didn't even get a slip cover. You know what I mean? So for those that care about slip covers, the avenues and how we're addressing this really just depends. Like, you could be talking to, I don't care about that, I don't care about that. Then everything about getting into this realm is going to be so easy for you. If you care about slipcovers, Kino Lorber will probably be your worst enemy. You don't know if you're going to get a slipcover. Generally speaking, you do need to pre-order that. It doesn't have to be through Kino Lorber specifically, but you can pre-order it through any of the manufacturers, any of the distributors, Grindhouse, Atomic, Orbit, Amazon, Walmart, Kino Lorber themselves. Any avenue that you choose and decide to use, you will probably get a slipcover. I don't think I've seen a slipless release. I know there's slips out there for most things, but most of the time, if you don't care about slipcovers, I want to say they hold a big sale every season of the year, every quarter of the year.
I would say every 2 or 3 months. Yeah, they do something. 2.5, 3 months more so. Yeah, about 4 times a year.
Yeah, and their prices are really good. You can find some things like, I ordered some of their Kino Cult titles because that's a new label from late last year to this year. Like, I think it's Alien Woman in Space or something like that. It's like spine number 2.
Yeah, they got 8
Alien Outlaw
already. Yeah.
Alien
Outlaw. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted that, and it was like $8, and I was like, "Oh, hell yeah!" You know.
Yeah.
Now, of course, shipping can be a little bit more. Most of these places will do $5 flat rate, and then $1 for each unit you do afterwards if you don't hit a certain minimal amount. But Kino Lorber is actually really excellent for the most part. Transfers wise, they do good work, but also understand they have a signed contract or partnership, however you want to phrase it, between, I believe it's Paramount, where they essentially, Paramount is just pumping and dumping transfers on them. They have an internal team that's doing the work, and Kino Lorber is the one that's putting them out there. But they also have some titles that they're doing in-house. I think an example is, I believe somebody's probably going to correct me below, or even you might will. Kindergarten Cop was done by Paramount, published by Kino Lorber. Death Wish,
I think so. Death Wish was done by
Kino.
By Kino, I know that for a fact. But
exactly.
I'm not sure about Kindergarten Cop. I'd have to get back to clarify that. But
so it's like they have some releases where they actually have their in-house restoration teams, and they have plenty of releases that are outside of the Paramount deal that we're talking about as of this recording, where you can get tons of different offerings. They have a really good, I think they also have MGM. They're the ones with MGM. They do have
MGM as well, yeah.
Yeah, they have a lot of partnerships. They're a big label. I would have to say, they're not as big as Scream, but I definitely have to put them in second place for sheer output volume. They release at least 4 to 6 titles a month, almost just under or over Vinegar Syndrome's amount, if you include Blu-ray. So that would be kind of what I say about Kino Lorber, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I love Kino personally. I mean, the thing is this, I don't order all of their stuff day one. Like Kindergarten Cop, I pre-ordered day one.
Yeah.
Bad Lieutenant was another release that I actually missed, but I actually just got that on the sale. Still came with a slip. I can actually tell you what I got. So just to give people an idea. Some of these are Blu-rays now, so keep in mind, like, they don't sell out as fast as the 4Ks, but a really good movie, haunted house film, Burnt Offerings from the 70s, that came with a slip. I got the Lee Van Cleef Western film, Death Rides a Horse, on Blu-ray. That came with a slip. A lesser-known Luc Besson film called Kamikaze. If anybody's interested in Luc Besson, check out Kamikaze, available now by Kino Lorber. That came with a slip. I got that for $8. Okay, I got Death Rides a Horse for Yeah, $8, dude. I mean, $8 and change. I think Burnt Offerings and Death Rides a Horse were both like 9 and change, like 9.99 or something like that.
Yeah.
The 4Ks I got were Gunfight at the OK Corral, Red
Oh, yeah.
Dragon. I reordered Leviathan because I actually ended up selling my Leviathan to a friend, and then I realized that I liked that movie a lot more than I thought I would, and I wanted to order it again. It still came with a slip. Red
You
Dragon
didn't have
came with
Red
a
Dragon?
slip.
I
I
thought you
didn't have
bought
Red
that.
Dragon. No, I
Interesting. I thought
waited.
you bought that day one. Okay.
I waited. Well, that's the thing, man. Like Red Dragon's been out for a decent time now, and again, still got my slips with it.
Yeah.
Everything I ordered except for 2 Blu-rays, which I knew were out for a while, didn't come with slips, but everything else had a slip cover. So again, if
Nice.
you're someone
Impressive.
who's into slip covers, you know, I'd say probably 7 or 8 times out of 10,
That's
if
fair.
it's not a big title with Kino, you're
Like
probably going to be
Spaceballs.
safe.
Yeah. Spaceballs was a nightmare. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But dude, I'm gonna be honest. Like, here's the thing with Kino though. I love their aesthetic.
Yeah.
Their visual packaging or the visual appearance of their
It's
slips.
linear.
It doesn't stand out to you like Vinegar Syndrome. Like it's not popping in your face.
Yeah.
But dude, it's very linear. It looks very good on the shelf.
Especially if you do a Kino section, it all just looks so flush. Like they're very
and there's
rarely
some
going to
people that
alternate.
do. Yeah, well, there's some people that do. They don't necessarily do the titles in alphabetical order. They do them by color. So you have people
Yeah.
have like
Just
everything like
Kino.
white and then gray. And dude, it's actually it's kind of cool to see. You know,
Yeah.
very aesthetically pleasing to look at. So Kino, good job with that. With
Yeah.
with that
Massive kudos.
presentation, very good job. But yeah, Kino. I mean, dude, the thing with those sales is like, and here's the thing, like Kino, when Kino has a sale, it's a damn sale, dude.
I agree.
Like you're gonna eat. Okay.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna eat
Agreed.
well. So I would if you're willing to get into Kino, they have a lot of great titles at their disposal. They got a lot of great Blu-rays too. Like this is the thing. Everybody's all about 4Ks, 4Ks, 4Ks. They still put out a friggin' shit ton of Blu-rays too. Right.
Hell yeah,
So,
they do.
you know, and I don't need to own everything on 4K. That's another
Agreed.
thing. Like we gotta come to terms with the fact that not everything needs to be on 4K. If it's a title that you think is gonna look better in 4K, if you've seen the
Then get it.
movie and you know what it is visually and you know what the cinematography is like, if you think it's going to be better on 4K, by all means buy the 4K. But I don't need I'm one of those people. I don't need a 4K of everything. So if I can
Well, to
find
your
the
point,
Blu-ray,
Will, yeah, like a lot of people don't realize. Sorry to cut you off, but the thing
no,
is,
you're good.
a lot of people don't realize that sometimes like it doesn't need to jump straight to 4K. True Lies being a perfect example. I know that's a mainstream release. That never. I'm pretty sure True Lies only had a Spain only 1080p, and The Abyss had only had a DVD and never had an HD. Right? People need to kind of think about that in these boutique releases. They couldn't have came out sometime since VHS, or maybe even possibly never been released. So Blu-ray is going to be the most cost-effective, the most easiest, and the most digestible for most people, you know, and especially at a good price range as well. So sometimes you got to understand. I know I'm about to get super obscure on some of these ones right here, but like the Emmanuel movies by Joe D'Amato, right? Those are movies that some of them have lost to the test of time, and then you have places like Severin, who we'll talk about in a little bit, putting them out for X, Y, and Z amount of dollars. And it could be Blu-ray only. And some people will say, well, why not 4K? Well, doesn't make sense. You know, of course I want it in the best quality, but it's like Herschel Gordon Lewis. If you have the Arrow set, it talks about it as soon as you pop in that disc that these were in rough elements. I'm never getting those in 4K. We got to understand about film preservation, like I talked about in the last episode. And for people that may have skipped that and coming to this one, film preservation and the way that it was stored, the way that it was kept, and the heating conditions, the cooling conditions, the humidity, the type of container that it's put in. Vinegar Syndrome over there on their YouTube has an excellent video about this that you should check out. But preservation is first and foremost what is the determining factor. Not everything that comes out of that film can reel can just be put in 4K. Sometimes they are absolutely blessed if they can even get that on 1080p. And sometimes it'll look DVD quality on 1080p. It just depends on the quality of what they got in that film can. I wanted to address that just to kind of double back on that because I did address that during last week's episode, Will, whenever Gabe and I talked.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. That's the thing. Like, you know, like I said, I think this is kind of a greater conversation, not necessarily for today's episode, but we kind of live in an age where there's so much abundance that we kind of always expect the best. And we got to understand that, sometimes you got to level your expectations a little bit more and realize that, like, some of these, like you said, some of these movies they have not been on a home video format in some time, in some cases, decades. So yeah, I think it's important to take that into account. I think it's a good perspective to have.
Yeah.
Just to kind of give you an idea, dude, I want to go through, let me see if I can filter this. I want to go through their newer releases
For
for this
Kino.
year. For Kino, yeah, but I'm trying to get to. I want to filter it by 4K because I'm pretty sure titles that came out in like the earlier part of the year, like January, February, titles like The Boogans, which again, not the best movie. Honestly, it's probably better to just have the Blu-ray of that. The 4K is okay, nothing spectacular, nothing to write home about. But something like Scarlet Street, which was absolutely amazing,
That's in my
phenomenal,
stack. Yeah, it's in my
phenomenal
stack.
noir film, dude. That's still available. That still has a slip. You can still get that with a slip, and that came out in, I think, January or February. It's now July. So again, just to give you guys an example that not everything that Kino puts out is going to sell out. Like you said, if it's something like a major title like Kindergarten Cop or something like that, we can expect that to sell out. But like High Noon is still available. That still has a slip. You can get that on the sale right now, $17.99, normally $39.99. So a $40 movie for like less than half the price. I mean, dude, you can't go wrong with that. So
Yeah.
highly recommend checking out Kino Lorber. And for anybody watching, that sale, I believe, at least as of this recording, that sale is still going on. I don't know when that's going to end.
It'll be a
Chase, I
while.
think it might end soon, but it's
Yeah.
been going on for almost a week now, I think.
Yeah, and I think that'll be a great segue into what probably most people probably even expected us to talk about first. But again, the way that we categorize this, I think this fits in the perfect spot, and that's going to be Arrow. And I kind of want to open that up and say that they are genuinely, if you haven't heard about Arrow Video, they're really depends, but it'd be hard to argue and say that they are not the best in the game. It'd be really hard to argue against Arrow. It really would. Now, some of the things I'm about to talk about, it could be easily argued against them. Now, they are a UK-based company. A UK, for our UK listeners out there, that a name I'm about to throw out, you'll probably be familiar. Zavi, an online entertainment retailer, actually owns Arrow. Bought them out about 3 or 4 years ago. So you can get a lot of that stuff there. But this is where things start getting different. Kino Lorber is an Australian company that does a lot of business internationally. So they branch out. Scream and Criterion are a US-based company last I checked. So Arrow is our first on this entry list, a UK company. So this is where things will start getting a little bit daunting whenever you look at them. Typically, Arrow's really good, and they actually put their own pictures on their Twitter feed, Facebook, Instagram, whatever your social media of choice is, and they'll even make the rounds on Reddit and our personal Discord that we have over there as well.
Yeah.
They'll usually put imagery and let you know what is US and what is UK only. You can always import from the UK to here at a pretty tax-heavy cost, import that from over here. I will say the only type of FOMO you have to worry about is those UK releases. I will argue that all day. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, sold out almost within 2 weeks. The Lighthouse sold out, I think, within a few days. Ringu sold out within a week. Or no, not Ringu. I apologize. Ringu was a US release. The Grudge Collection that they did, that with the 4K and the multiple Blu-rays, sold out really quick. So now that brings me into branching out into other distributors. You've probably heard us talking about Grindhouse Video. You've heard us talk about Orbit, and you've heard us talk about Atomic. The Hellraiser and Psycho sets, which Will and I both gave a really big tip of the hat to some of the best physical media releases of last year. If you listened to our awards episode last year or at the beginning of this year, those were amazing. They were UK only, and they were hard to get. I was so lucky to get it. I got mine through Grindhouse. Some of these places that we're listing, I take the note down, add them to your list of places to check out, because sometimes ordering through them, you will get it cheaper post taxes and everything and import fees than going through Arrow directly. I cannot advocate for Orbit, Atomic, and Grindhouse enough. Scream Factory, like I said, most of those other places do a lot of international this or that. But once you start going to the UK, you have different tariffs, you have different taxes, you have different export and import laws when you're dealing with the UK. So unfortunately, that gets passed off onto the consumer. But typically, if you find the right third-party retailers, again, I'll say it again, Atomic, Grindhouse, and Orbit are your best bets for tackling the UK-only exclusives for Arrow. Now, that's the only thing I'll say you have FOMO of. I can't name of an Arrow Video US release that's out of print. The only thing you'll have to worry about is whether it's LE or standard. This is where it comes into, just like what I was saying with slipcovers, what you care about. If you don't care, the background of this video is perfect. Well, isn't this your shelf? This background image for the video?
It may or may not be my shelf. Yeah.
No,
it's myself. Yeah.
So if you, for our video listeners, I'll describe it for our podcast listeners. But so like you have these nice thicker spines. You've probably seen them make the rounds. They're very nicely done. But a full slip is something that's almost like taking out a case within a case. Instead of just a slip cover, something you peel off from the top or from the bottom, and it comes off in one fell swoop. A full slip covers everything but one side of the spine when you put it in. They typically come with booklets, sometimes extra DVDs, CD soundtracks, depending on the company, depending on what they do. If you want that, pre-order it. Sometimes they will go out of print rather quickly. I believe Donnie Darko you can still get, but I think Cat of Nine Tails, just to list the ones that are right here, The Hills Have Eyes, True Romance you can still find at Barnes & Noble, Deep Red, Cat of Nine Tails, Birds with the Crystal Plumage, all out of stock. Blood and Black Lace over here on our background, perfect example of something that sold out within a week. You cannot get that for a reasonable price right now. That thing is way long gone out of stock because it was a UK only. An American Werewolf in London, out of print, and that was a US release. So you got to really gauge on what you want. Arrow, it just depends. You will always be able to get the standard of something. You will never not be able to get the standard of something.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the American releases, it's about 9 to 10 ratio of it'll keep the LE versus go out of print. We'll go ahead and take it over.
I just wanted to piggyback on that. I think with Arrow, this is where people really need to start being conscious of whether or not something is going to sell out and trying their best to, and here's the good thing about this. I mean, if you're someone that's in the community, if you're part of a Discord, if you pay attention to what people are talking about on YouTube and the physical media community, we put out videos all the time, but there's plenty of creators in this space.
Yeah.
And plenty of information out there that, if you spend 15, 20 minutes on YouTube, you can pretty much gauge what the anticipation is like for any individual release, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's by the videos themselves, what people are talking about in the videos, what people are talking about in the comments. Chase said he's going to put the link for our Discord community in below the video. I'd highly recommend that if anybody isn't part of that community to check it out. Even if you're not there to socialize with people, no worries. It's more so to kind of get a pulse on some of these other titles that are not mainstream studio discs, because studio discs, Criterion, Scream Factory, we're kind of going in order of how likely these things are to sell out, right? From
exactly.
The first two labels we mentioned being safer plays for someone that's just getting into this. And Arrow, I think, is kind of where you kind of cross over into that territory where it's anything's fair game, right? So
agreed.
With Arrow, I think you got to ask yourself, how much do I love this movie?
Yep, always.
If it's a movie that I really love and something that's really significant to me, whether it be, nostalgia or whatever the case may be, go for it, dude. Get it. Don't hold out because you're not going to regret it later.
Agreed.
If you second guess and say, I'll give it time, you might find yourself kicking yourself down the road. That being said, if it's not a movie that you need to have right away, know that in most cases, right, 95% of the time, there's going to be a standard release down the road. They will release the LE first.
Always. And
they will have a standard come out like 2 months, 3 months later. They always,
like
Arrow has been known to do that, just like Psycho and Hellraiser as well.
Yep. They did like a thick Amaray, right?
Yeah,
Amaray slipped.
For Hellraiser, it was like it was like all the movies, but it was still somewhat of a thicker package, but obviously nowhere near as thick as the special casing that they had for the
absolutely
original, the first collection. But
yeah,
that's the thing. I mean, and that's the first thing you got to ask yourself. Like, do I want this day one? Is this movie good enough? And do I love this movie enough to get it day one? And even if you love the movie, do you need to have an LE? You know,
yeah,
I have a lot of Arrow LEs, but I got plenty of stuff that I don't have an LE for because I don't need it. Right. And for the sake of space, that's another thing that you always got to think about in the equation: space. Right. Most
always
studio discs, Criterion has some weird packaging sometimes with some of
never
their
predictable.
releases.
Yeah,
They're kind of unpredictable with that. We should have mentioned that, but you know, to touch on that real quick, Criterion's packaging is kind of all over the place for you know, and that's the best way I can say it. You know, not throwing shade, just saying it's just expect Criterion's packaging to be, let's just say, inconsistent from release to release.
yeah.
You know,
Agreed.
I kind of wish they did something like Radiance or one of those labels where they just have the standard Amaray case for every release
Yeah,
with Criterion, because I feel like Criterion kind of fits that mold. And I'll talk about Radiance if we have time in this episode. Maybe we do a part 2, maybe not.
Yeah.
But yeah, with Arrow, to get back to them, if you love the movie and you want some really great packaging, Arrow is like second to none with their packaging. They do a really good job with their LEs. They're very streamlined. They're very consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And they just do a fantastic job from the production booklets that they put inside the LEs. They always do great work. You know, usually you get a poster as well. If you love it, go for it day one. I'd always recommend that. If you're willing to wait, then definitely wait, you know, because some of these things you can probably get on sale. And there's always a chance that there's going to be LEs of certain movies that are released, and you know, maybe 3-4 months later you can find them on a sale. You know, Grindhouse runs sales occasionally. Orbit, I know every now and then has like some special promotions that they do. Diabolic DVD as well. Atomic, I'm not as familiar with. Atomic's a newer retailer, but Atomic I've been
They're
hearing great
great.
things about.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's another thing, as Chase said, if you don't want to import these titles, you can save a lot of money by going through either Diabolic DVD, Atomic Video, Grindhouse Video, Orbit DVD. These are fantastic retailers that are involved in the industry, and they know what it is that they're doing. They run great businesses, and they're fantastic to work with, as far as I know. Like, my interactions with each company have been excellent. You know, customer service, fantastic. So yeah, really don't hesitate to look into what they have to offer and what they have, you know, and you can sign up for mailing lists. They'll tell you when they have pre-orders and what's new for pre-orders. I know Diabolic, I get an email every week with what's new, with what's going up on the site. And that's really cool. So, but yeah, as far as Arrow, I think that's when you really got to start paying attention to what's going on and which releases you want, and which releases you're going to hold off on, right? And you know, check out down the line. So,
yeah, I agree, and I think that wraps. I would say that would be part one of our section that we have going on here, and I think really everything after that, everything that we're about to say, can go under an umbrella. Of course, let us know down in the comments below if you want us to break down each individual one a little bit more. But I'm going to list what I would say would probably be the 4 that Will and I order from the most, or what I see people from the Discord ordering the most. Now, we're getting into the much more niche. Like, these companies sometimes will release big name titles. Like, one of them did Existence from David Cronenberg, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. One of them does a lot more like, Roadhouse. Another one does like some Category 3 Hong Kong flicks, which is super awesome. I believe they did Police Story, which is a very popular Jackie Chan trilogy. So these are going to be a little bit more niche, but everything that we can say is going to be all encompassing. Some of these might be more catered to a very specific genre taste or a very specific genre type. But the next ones that I think we should confront in order would be Vinegar Syndrome, Severin, Terror Vision, and then 88 Films. I think those ones would be great. I think those ones are very easy to tackle all in one burst. I think that would be a really good way because we can talk about all of them almost as if they're one, except I think the biggest outlier would be Vinegar Syndrome and Severin. But I think everything and every nitpick that I'd have could probably all encompass it. The biggest advantage, and I'll start with Vinegar Syndrome because I would say that that's a top 5 boutique release label out there because people pay attention to them. They just have a reputation for what they put out. Now, to preface, Will and I were laughing and kind of just conversating about this a little bit before we rolled. But the thing about Vinegar Syndrome is like it's not necessarily the safest company to blind buy through unless you're definitely into B through Z type horror, schlock, exploitation, or rather more adult oriented films that show a lot more just nudity and stuff. That's what Vinegar Syndrome does. They have some physical brick and mortar locations around the world. They have 3 in North America. And so you can go in and buy this stuff. And they'll let you know exactly how many slipped copies of something that they have through their website, how many just standard Amaray, non-slipped editions they have, how many of this, how many of that. Now, outside of that, do you really need to worry about FOMO? Not up until recently would be my answer for that. Because there's been 2 instances, Will and I actually got affected by one of them recently. We were very fortunate enough to both get the Existence, which if you're curious about that movie, we have a review up on the channel. But we got a hold of that, and that sold out, I'd say, over the course of 3 days. But I think recently we probably saw them sell out the fastest out of any type of limited edition we've ever seen. The Sadness, which is a Shudder original, that's one of their more popular ones, got announced as a partner. So Vinegar Syndrome not only puts out their own productions and films they acquire these reels and restorations to, but they also do like June, just last month, a month before this recording, do Partners Only Month. They do it every June and December, where they release 30, 40, 20 plus partner titles through OCN distribution, through Shudder now. Saturn Films is one of them. Gunpowder and Sky, tons. I think there's like a list of 10, 15 plus easily.
Yeah, Connie is another one. Connie releasing. They do a lot. TerraVision used to be
a partner
the Vinegar Syndrome partner label too. They used to put out TerraVision stuff. That's how I first learned about TerraVision, which is a label that I now love and buy from regularly. So Vinegar Syndrome, they do a lot to support other smaller labels that are growing, that are out there, more independent labels, which is really cool. But yeah, with Vinegar Syndrome, man, it's weird. Like, it's such a wild time because you never really know what's going to sell out. Like the Sadness, as popular as I had an idea that movie had a big following, that a lot of people were aware of that
Sadness
movie, with the Shudder exposure.
Yeah.
But I still did not think that would sell out so quickly.
4 hours, man.
Like, dude, hours.
Yeah.
Hours.
2,000 units gone.
So that's the stuff you gotta think about, folks. And here's the thing, like Vinegar Syndrome, and like I'll watch some other stuff on YouTube, some other people in the space, and it's always funny because some people do like the Vinegar Syndrome sale live streams where they just wait. And it's always funny because a couple guys, shout out to Dead Pit, by the way, the Dead Pit dudes. Those guys are like the funniest guys, dude. Because every time they do like a Vinegar Syndrome stream, they're like, "All right, here we go. We're gonna be prepared to be disappointed." Because, they're busting up, but it's just always funny because the thing with Vinegar Syndrome is, dude, you never know when you're gonna be like, okay, you're gonna be let down. Like maybe a decent amount of time people are let down because I think they're also expecting them to constantly put out fire titles, and that's not always the case.
Just acquire them in droves. Yeah.
But the thing is, when they do release stuff that makes people like turn their heads, like that's when it's fun. That's when it's exciting. That's when it's a fun time to be a collector and be a part of it.
Yeah, agreed.
So every now and then they put out some fire titles and great releases. But no, it's really interesting because I've said this before. Vinegar Syndrome, out of all of the boutique labels, they have their aesthetic, their marketing, they have it down.
Agreed.
Better than anybody.
With the silhouette of the lady, it's just iconic, man, in our world, I feel like.
Very good branding.
Label. Yeah.
But in the branding is one thing, but it's also like, dude, the cover art for the slips, like they just like every title that they put out, love it or hate it, it pops on the shelf.
Yeah.
In most cases. And that's the thing. Like I can walk into my room from afar and I immediately know, okay, there's Vinegar Syndrome right there.
Yeah.
I know exactly where it is. And that's there's something to be said for that, dude. And dude, even for movies that are like complete trash, dude, the slip covers
They'll
They
go
find a
crazy.
way, man. They make
Yeah.
those slip covers sell that damn movie to you, dude.
Yeah,
And
they
I've
do.
been guilty of it where I see the slip, I'm like, yeah, dude, this actually looks pretty fucking dope. And then I watch the movie, I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, the slip's better, but and sometimes I've been pleasantly surprised though, and that's the thing. But we should kind of just touch on because you mentioned it briefly, but we should talk about blind buying because I think
Oh, yeah, for
personally,
sure.
from personal experience, Vinegar Syndrome, they are the label that I blind buy from more than I think any other label.
Just those
Um,
slipcover designs, and they show, like, the best stills, man. Because 'cause I'm not a
yeah,
trailer person, and to
no,
kinda
no,
put this out there, Vinegar Syndrome actually owns, I won't say a majority because I don't wanna talk out of my ass, but they actually own a lot of what they put out there. They
yeah,
full on buy the film rights to some of these movies that they put out there, and it's Vinegar Syndromes. So that's how you're supporting them. You're supporting them directly, and they're putting money into restoring these and acquiring these films.
yeah,
But, yeah, blind buying from Vinegar Syndrome is so fun. They're the only company, it's like, so, like, I'm very fortunate to have a Vinegar Syndrome. They're referred to as the archive. They are very close geographically compared to the distance of the United States for me to get to. And you go in there and you'll just pull something off of there. It's got this pink spine with that little silhouette of the lady right there. And it'll say like Alien Outlaws from Space. And it looks so terrible, but the cover art is so good. And you see $12 on it. And you're like, why the fuck not? You
yeah,
know? Because I know I'll find some kind of fun. I can't sit here and say I've been in a boat where I've gotten something bad. I know some people, that movie Curse of the Blue Light, some people said was bad, but I actually had fun with it. I liked it.
yeah. I didn't get that one.
They're really good. It was fun.
Well,
It's a
well,
kids movie.
here's the thing: the best time to blind buy from Vinegar Syndrome is to wait for their half off sale. So
Yeah,
they do a halfway to Black Friday sale, and then they do a Black Friday sale
yeah.
where
3 days, right?
they what's that?
It's 3 days just for people that care.
Yeah, but
72
so
hours.
what they do is, well, the halfway to Black Friday, I think was what was that, a week or something like that? I don't
Mhm.
remember what it was. What was the one they
It's
just
still
did? It was
happening.
like a week.
Yeah. Where they do, like, daily deals and stuff, like, that was the halfway.
The daily deals is what you guys got to look out for if you're getting into Vinegar Syndrome. Daily deals are where you find a lot of titles discounted. Sometimes they got titles as low as $10
Yeah.
on there for Blu-rays, some of which still have slips. And again, as Chase
Yeah.
mentioned, you guys go to their website. I don't know how it works on mobile because sometimes on my app, on the Vinegar Syndrome app, it's hard to see how many copies they have left in stock. But on my, like, if I were to go on my computer, on my laptop, I could see how many copies, slipped copies they have left versus standard, right? Um, but yeah, I would say check out the daily deals on their sales. Wait for the Black Friday sale. That's probably the best time to buy a lot of their titles. 50% off, which is fantastic. I've gotten most of my collection of Vinegar Syndrome during those sales, and I do a lot of stuff day one as well. Like there's certain titles that I'll do day one, like Roadhouse, I did day one, Texas Chainsaw, that was day one.
Easy.
Existence was day one. Like the Vinegar Syndrome Ultimates line, most of those I've gotten day one. The only one I didn't get, or the two I should say that I didn't get, was Southern Comfort and Navy SEALs, which are both still available. So
Yeah.
I'm going to keep an eye on them. And that's the thing, guys, with Vinegar Syndrome, every week, every other week, go on their website, check the numbers. Just check the numbers. Just keep track of what you want, make note of what they have, make note of titles that catch your eye, and just, go on there and just keep an eye on things. Yeah, it's a little more work. If you're willing to dedicate the time to it, though, it's going to pay off in the end greatly because
Yeah.
you're going to be able to keep track of how fast those titles are selling. And I did that with the last sale that they just had the other week. I saw there were some titles that I wanted to buy, 3-4 months ago. And I said, you know what? Nope, I'm going to hold off because they're going to have that other sale. And I made out and I saved myself a decent amount of money. So you know what? It's worth it,
Yeah.
man. It's worth it if you have the time to dedicate, which, time is limited these days. We're all busy. We all have lives. We all have jobs. But,
Always.
it takes a few minutes, dude. Every couple weeks, go on and check and see how things are going with the numbers. That's what I would recommend with a company like Vinegar Syndrome. And you know what? They don't necessarily make it hard to do because, as
They
Chase
don't.
said, they give you they show you, how
Exactly.
many
They'll tell you
copies
they
they
have
have
2
left.
left. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like,
Yeah,
"Yeah,
it'll
you're looking
show
at the
it.
last of
So,
2."
yeah.
Yeah.
So, it makes it a little easier. They also do this thing where they have a checklist. If you sign up and you make an account, they have a checklist where you can check off what you own and check off what you want, which is kind of cool. Like, so that's a
Yeah.
cool feature that I haven't really seen any other label really do with their website.
Yeah.
So, Vinegar Syndrome, they're unique in that sense. That's something they got going on. Whether or not people use that or not is one thing. But,
Yeah.
I thought it was a cool feature. But yeah, I would say with them, you know, they're not going to be for everybody in the first place. But Vinegar
Yeah.
Syndrome, I think they are like becoming a name for themselves, regardless of whether or not they put out movies that everybody loves. Like Roadhouse was a big release. Texas Chainsaw
Huge.
Massacre 2 was huge. Every now and then they put out some really big titles like Invasion USA, which is the Chuck Norris movie. That was the last big one that I think got a lot of attention that a lot of people were talking about. There's still plenty of copies of that in stock. But yeah, I mean, they have the VSU line, the Vinegar Syndrome Ultimate line, which I think it's one of the coolest, I think, lines of any company that's out right now in regards to physical media.
I agree.
Everything from the
Now,
packaging to now, not every movie is a banger, but like there's been a lot of like cool movies that they put out. Roadhouse being one of them. That VSU line is cool. Like if you're a collector, I would say that's one of the coolest things to look for is the VSU line from Vinegar Syndrome. I just think it's just something that looks so good on your shelf just to have all those titles next to each other. They're similar to the size of the Arrow LEs.
Yeah, a little bit thicker because they're made with
little bit
higher
thicker,
quality
yeah,
cardboard.
But the thing is, they kind of open up like a book, and they have the
They
little
do.
tassel in there. It's really cool, man. Vinegar Syndrome,
One.
like Arrow, does some incredible work. And that's the thing. The movies they put out are not always, super popular. A lot of them are under the radar, low budget, like Chase said, like B to Z movies.
Yeah.
But their packaging it's second to none, man. They do
really
incredible work.
top of the game in that one. I agree.
Yeah, so
from their full slips to everything. And before we move on, the last thing I want to say, and we've said it, but it's like, this is the one company. It's not like Arrow, like we said, where it's 50-50. It really depends on the region it's coming from and how many licensed titles they get, or how much in the licensing agreement they get to release as titles. You can have some things go out of print within a couple of days, within a week, 2 weeks, a few months, 2 years from the time it releases. So if it's something that you want, probably wait for every 6 months there's a sale. You'll probably be safe on that end. So check that out. Now, I would say we can save the next two, TerraVision and like 88 Films and stuff like that. Which again, TerraVision probably being the most obscure on our list, but love them. I absolutely adore everything. But I would
Can
say,
I say one thing, Jace?
Yeah, go for it.
I was going to say I would actually throw like Eureka in with 88 Films.
Eureka. Yeah, Eureka's great.
Eureka and 88 Films for me are kind of on the same level, I guess I would say. Now, do I own more from 88 Films? Yes, I own more of the 88 Films LEs, like their big boxes, which I think are awesome. But Eureka puts out, I'd say, probably the same amount of titles in terms of frequency each month. They release about the same. So, but Eureka's pretty good too. They do a lot of like the Hong Kong flicks and martial arts films as well, like 88 Films. So I kind of, when I look at 88 Films and Eureka, I always kind of view them in the same light.
No, I agree. Yeah, we'll be able to kind of break those down very similarly. And now I feel like this one is worthy of its own conversation if we're just talking as a whole, but Severin's also another big one. A lot of people in the horror community, because that's really, they're nothing like Vinegar Syndrome, where you'll have the occasional Chuck Norris movie, you have a David Cronenberg movie. Like, they don't really get a lot of super high profile. They will get high profile, like, as an example, they have a summer sale going on as of the time of this recording that'll end before this one goes out. So they do a sale almost every 6 months, but their movies on releases can be anywhere from $80 to $60. So their prices and barrier of entry are very high, probably the highest out of anyone on this list. But you can worry and do, if that's how far you want to go and you're huge into exploitation, grindhouse, horror, schlock, anything like that, that's a genuine worry. But then again, if you have patience and pays off, like I was worried about Psychic going out of print because of just history with the company, and they're great. They do amazing work. I bought Psychic, a Lucio Fulci movie, at full price, $60, but right now, as of this recording, it's going for $35 on their summer sale. You know what I mean? So it's really give or take a lot more so than Vinegar Syndrome. Not everything's guaranteed to have a slip. Most things will be, but most of their releases are going to be at least $45 in the 4K department. No less, really. I don't think that there's been one that's come out with less. I think they're a really solid company. I just think that I just think they have probably the most expensive barrier of entry because they're getting these licenses to such high profile things in our world, like for horror connoisseurs. So they kind of know that they can tax. And I mean that with utmost respect to the company because they do amazing work. But I just think that's probably the biggest barrier of entry whenever it comes to Severin, personally.
Yeah, I love Severin, but they expensive as fuck, man.
Yeah,
lower your
real.
shit, guys.
Yeah, for real, man. For real.
No, I mean, listen, they just put out you were talking about the summer sale. The big release that had everybody talking was Opera.
My favorite
Dario
Argento's
Opera.
I bought it
which
immediately.
Again, another long-awaited 4K release. And for those of you that are interested in or fans of Joe Spinell and are fans of the movie Maniac, which Blue Underground put out, they just put out a movie called The Last Horror Film, which they released already months back, but they released it with a new limited edition slipcover. So this is a re-release of The Last Horror Film, which is also known as Maniac 2. So this was and it's actually, dude, this movie is actually really good. Like, it's actually the restoration that they did on this movie, like, breathes new life into it. Like, it's a completely different movie.
That's crazy. They do good work like that. Like, and that's why I understand why they tax a little bit.
Yeah. But yeah, the thing with Severin is, like, if you're going to order their titles, be prepared to pay. Be prepared to get a second job temporarily to afford to ship their titles to your house.
Agreed.
But again, those sales, like I said, you can find a lot of Severin titles. Like, some of these labels now that we're getting into, folks, we should preface this too. You can find a lot of their titles on sale months later, whether it's through, Grindhouse Video or Orbit or places like that. You can find their titles on sales months later. So, again, unless it's something that you absolutely have to have, like if you're a big Dario Argento fan and you want Opera day one, then yeah, I would recommend getting it before it sells out. But Severin's also done some like weird shit where they say that like a title is limited, and then later they have more copies available, which is kind of weird. Like, they did that with oh damn, what's the one I'm thinking of with the camera? Four Flies on Gray Velvet.
Yeah, you have to email them to get it because of licensing issues, I guess.
Yeah. So that was kind of a weird thing where they said that it was limited and then it wasn't, like Chase just said. Turns out you can just email them and ask for it, and technically they can sell it to you and you can buy it. But other than that, I mean, they do fantastic work. Their restorations are really good. But yeah, Severin, like, they got a lot of cool stuff. I own a decent amount of their films.
Same.
Like Blood for Dracula being one of the most notable. I really love Blood for Dracula, so I have the LE of that. I had to get it day one. So the sale they have going on right now, which is the summer sale, as Chase said, it's probably going to end. I think it's until hopefully until midnight on the 16th. I think it's only a few more days, but if it's until midnight on the 16th, which is the day that this video will be posted, you guys will still have, a little while or, a little less than a day to order some of these titles. But the sale is actually not bad. There's 50% off some titles. Some of the titles on their website are actually up to like 75% off for some of the Blu-rays. So
I got some for like $6-8, man, with slips, like earwax or something like that. Wax mask.
Yeah, I got stuff like I ordered like Enigma, which is a Fulci movie, I believe. That's one that I wanted for a long time. But really now that I ordered the Blu-ray, they're going to put it out on 4K like 3 months from now.
Yeah, they will.
You're welcome, everybody. But yeah, Enigma. I got Grizzly. I got some other stuff. I got The Devil's Honey. Which is
man, such a good restoration. Yeah, I just watched my 4K movie of that. Oh, so good.
So yeah, guys. I mean, Severin, again, barrier to entry very high. Like, we're getting into some very exquisite territory here. So like I said, in order to get some of Severin stuff, you got to be willing to dish out a little more of that cash. But as I said, if you're willing to wait for a lot of these titles, you can find them later, like on sale, through various outlets. So that's something to keep in mind too.
That is. And Will, I actually just forgot about probably your and I's, probably, I think it's your favorite, just like it is mine. I think we should hold like TerraVision with the more obscure people with utmost respect to them because we didn't get to talk about Second Sight. I don't know how we forgot about them.
Yeah. Well, Second Sight's kind of in a league of their own, literally, because here's the thing with them. Well, Second Sight is based in the UK.
They are, just like Arrow. Yep.
Their releases go for big money.
Yeah.
Like that Drive Ellie
$70 after
is-
taxes imported.
Yeah. And the thing is, like they've done such fantastic work. The thing with Second Sight is they take movies like The Witch, which had a studio release. Dude, they put that studio release to shame.
Yeah. Yeah, they did.
With their version, with their limited edition.
Yeah.
The artwork on their releases is fantastic. Let me see if I can grab it just to show everybody. I don't know if I did this when we did our boutique video. I don't remember if I had this title. Did I showcase the Drive 4K?
I think so.
I think I did.
With the Scorpion?
Yeah.
Yep. I think so.
Yeah.
Their releases really are second to none. They all come in like the utmost best collector's edition casing and everything that you can get on the market. That's not a premium
Texas
steelbook.
Chainsaw Massacre was another big one.
So
We've talked
good.
about that one before, a lot of times. Martin was one that they put out more recently. You reviewed Green Room and Possessor, two other releases they put out.
Fantastic
so anybody
releases.
that's interested in that, check out Chase's reviews. He did reviews for those two movies, but Green Room was a more recent release that people were excited about.
Such a good movie too.
The thing with Second Sight is that's the thing. Here it is. You're going to have to, I would say, most likely try to get these titles day one. If it's something like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like
You have
Drive,
to.
like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Chase and I both adore that movie. We did a whole interview with Alan Danziger on our channel. I mean, we are huge fans of Texas Chainsaw, as are, pretty. If you're not a fan of Texas Chainsaw Massacre and you're a horror fan, then you got something wrong with you. But anyway,
agreed.
The point being is, like, dude, that's a day one purchase for me.
Yeah.
There's no question.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm importing it. I'm importing it from either Orbit DVD or Diabolic or Atomic. Find a retailer that has it and get that day one if you can. Because with Second Sight, like I said, man, it's you're rolling the die if you want to hold off on any of that stuff. And again, not all of their releases are going to sell out. Like, I don't know if High Tension sold out. That's a movie that's very controversial. A lot of people do not like that ending, but it did still sell out.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. I mean, and that's something, and I ordered High Tension as well. So even though I don't like the ending, the rest of the movie is fantastic. I really enjoy the movie overall. Yeah. The ending sucks. A lot of people, criticize that, but that's an example of a release. They still did that movie justice with their transfer and their packaging. There's another movie that they just put out, Frontiers, which is, it's funny. We just did a video not long ago about the most disturbing movies we've seen, and we talked about the film Martyrs. And Frontiers is another one of those French extreme horror films. Second Sight did a release for. So they also did a South Korean movie, I believe, a South Korean horror movie, Gangnam Haunted Asylum. I hope I'm saying that right. I don't know if I am. Which is almost like a found footage, ghost, haunted house flick, except, it's a bunch of these people, they're film crew and they go to this haunted asylum. So, pretty creepy movie, but I don't know if something like that would sell out. But again, Second Sight, it's interesting. They don't necessarily, they just put out The Hitcher. The Hitcher is available for pre-order right now, folks.
I need to get that.
If you're fans of The Hitcher, I got to do that. I just reminded myself of that. So.
Yes.
After we're done recording this, you and I should simultaneously pre-order that because we're going to be kicking ourselves a month from now when it sells out.
But they've been making that for years, man.
Yeah, they've been working. So here's the thing with Second Sight. They
put years
tend
of
to,
work.
in some cases, they announce movies that they're working on. In the case of The Hitcher, it's been years.
Yeah, but 3 years at least. I remember at least the first year announcement was 3 years. Yeah.
But they've been working on that restoration forever. So this is the thing. You tend to hear about some of these a while in advance. But the thing with Second Sight is there in some cases there's really not necessarily any rhyme or reason for the sequence of their releases. And let me know if you agree with that, Chase, because they could do something like Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
Then they do like again like a Brandon Cronenberg film, right? Like it's
Yeah. They
they're
have
kind
that
of all over the
Korean
place in
filmmaker
regards to
one.
what they pick.
They have that one coming out literally next week. It's the Korean. It's got such good reviews, man. And they're doing The Strangers as well.
Oh, I know which one you're talking about. You're talking about the one that looks like it's like a blue cover.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they're doing Your Next, and they're doing A Bittersweet Life.
Yeah, Your Next is day one for me. I love that
Agreed.
movie. I don't know if you've seen that. That's a fantastic
Yes.
movie. So I got to get that one. I got to get The Hitcher. I'm trying to remember the one you're talking about, the Korean title.
A Bittersweet Life. Yeah, it's got
Bittersweet
amazing
Life.
reviews.
Yeah, that's
available
a good one
22nd of July, so 2 weeks from now, and then The Hitcher.
But this is this is the thing with Second Sight, folks. They'll do something like Your Next, which is, I don't remember when Your Next came out. It's been quite a while.
2014.
2014 slasher.
Yeah,
and then they'll go and do something like A Bittersweet Life.
2011.
So it's not necessarily like they're not like Arrow or they're not like Vinegar Syndrome, where the types of movies that they're putting out are necessarily within the same genre, right? Or the same type of movie. Like Vinegar Syndrome deals with a lot of, like you said, schlock, exploitation, cult cinema. Whereas Second Sight, I would say they're almost like, I don't want to use the word highbrow because I hate that word. I hate when that word's used. But they're almost
definitely
like
a premium company.
They're like a premium version of Criterion. Let's put it that way. I would say that they're a Criterion, a premium version of Criterion. And dude, like again, they're not afraid to get involved with some of the movies that they decide to release. Like movies like The Hitcher, movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, movies like Your
the
Next.
director and everything.
Some people would say Your Next, like, oh, that's trash. Like Criterion would never put out a movie like Your Next and give it the kind of care that Second Sight is doing.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily saying that as a bad thing about Criterion. I'm just saying like Criterion has a very strict way of doing what they do. And Second Sight, their packaging is second to none. They do incredible, masterful work. I think that's the right word for it. Because it is masterful. But yeah, with Second Sight, you're going to pay, close to premium prices, and that's the thing. But if it's a movie that you guys really care about, I would say definitely to look for it day one. And as we said, get Diabolic, get Atomic, Orbit DVD, Grindhouse Video. Try to pre-order through those guys because they will most likely carry, if not one, the others will carry a lot of the Second Sight stuff. So. Yeah, I'm glad because I almost forgot about Second Sight.
Yeah, I don't know how I did.
Glad you mentioned
They're my favorite. Yeah. They're literally, like you said, dude. I mean, releases can run you close to $50 after import taxes to $70 a pop, depending on what you're going for. Blu-ray, 4K. But I mean, it's worth every penny. Like I have The Sacrament coming in on Blu-ray from them. I love that movie. I'll pay the top dollar for it because I'm getting a forever lasting packaging. I'm getting some extra stills, and I'm going to have some special features that are going to keep me busy for at least 3 to 4 hours. They record their own special features for all of these. It's insane, though.
Yeah, that's the thing we should mention too. Second Sight, and I don't know if we've talked about this before. I don't know if we mentioned this in our boutique video where we did our top 10 or top 5 boutiques. I forget what the number was, but. Yeah. Second Sight does. They produce a lot of their own special features. So it's not just stuff that's like ported over from like a previously existing release. A lot of the stuff they take the time to produce and edit themselves for their releases, which is pretty cool. And that's why some of these things take as long as they do. Like in the case of The Hitcher, it's not only is it the restoration, but it's getting all the special features that they want to get to be able to make sure they give us the most complete release possible. So yeah, you're going to pay a premium price, as we've been saying, but it's definitely worth it if it's a movie that you really like. So
yeah, I agree. And I think that'll be a perfect list, and we can definitely make a part 2 because there's so many boutique labels out there. We could easily make this video 3 hours long, very easily. But I think that'll be a good place for us to jump off.
Runtime. Yeah, I think we're good for now, guys. I mean, and just to shout out the rest of the boutique labels, we have Blue Underground, we got
Oh, so
TerraVision, we
good.
got Unearthed Films, we got new labels like Error 444 that are doing some really great stuff with like Category 3, Hong Kong films. So there's a lot of other labels that we're going to talk about, and so that'll be a part 2, which we'll be looking forward to.
Absolutely.
But for now, I think
it's
we
a
kind of got off
entry
to a
level
good
list.
start.
Yeah. I think it's a very good, easily digestible entry level list. What you'd probably see most people talking about joining it and talking about on the Reddit or the Discord right now. And I have it up right here. They're literally talking about Second Sight right now. To prove the point. So thank you guys. Let us know if there's a specific one that you want us to talk about, because we will for sure do a part 2, because Will and I are super passionate about boutique labels out there. And then if for people that have probably been watching this, if you're a premium steelbook collector, Gabe did a whole video about the different companies and everything like that over on the channels on how to get into premiums. So if that is something that you maybe were desiring us to talk about, we were just specifically talking about boutique labels. If you want to know more about premium steelbooks or boutique steelbooks, check out Gabe's video on that. He's done that over on the YouTube. But I think this will be a pretty good entry level list for boutique labels. Anything else to say, Will?
I was just going to plug some boutique sales. Like we said, the Severin Summer Sale is still going on, guys. Check that out. Like I said, they got some of their newer stuff up, like that Opera 4K set, which is just gorgeous.
Great.
The Last Horror Film, which is a really good movie with Joe Spinell. So again, if you guys are fans of the film Maniac, check that out. And there's some other good stuff on the sale. Like I said, a lot of their other titles, the box sets, Blu-rays, even some of their 4Ks are on sale. Anywhere from 50% to 75% off on some titles. Like Chase said, you get a movie for like $8. So check out the Severin Summer Sale. Check out the Kino Summer Sale, which I believe is also still happening. So, check that out. Kino has some of the best sales, like we were talking about earlier. Their sales are like legit sales. Like you're actually going to save a decent amount of money. So check that out. Support Kino, support Severin, support the rest of our boutique labels. And hopefully this video was helpful, guys. We appreciate you guys checking it out. Remember, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Hit the notification bell. Comment down below. Let us know what boutique labels you're interested in, and if so, what you're looking forward to getting, if you are going to get anything. Other than that, we will see you guys on the flip side. Thanks again.
See you on the flip side, everybody.